Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today we are going to take a look at Mars opposing Uranus. Mars has just entered the sign of Sagittarius and is immediately making an opposition to Uranus in the sign of Gemini. I'm going to give you a list of 5 things to watch for, and then I also have some reflective questions to guide you as we consider your horoscopes today. We'll be taking a look at the oppositional tension between the 2 houses that Mars and Uranus are occupying in your natal charts through rising sign horoscopes. Of course, you could listen to those for your sun sign as well. So that's our agenda for today. Before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe, hype us, click the notification bell so you receive updates, all of the things. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. We're starting to do promotions a little bit differently. You'll notice that I will always lead with whatever our main promotion of the day is. And then if there are secondary promotions for something else happening, let's say in this month of November, you'll find me sort of sprinkling those throughout. And I'm hoping that will sort of decongest the beginning of our episodes every day. So anyway, go to the courses page, click on first year course. Our major promotion for the day is our class Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, begins on November 15th. It is coming up. You still have some time to register and join us for a year of immersive study. We're diving deep into the roots of ancient Hellenistic astrology. Everything in our programs is designed to build meaningful bridges between ancient astrology and modern forms of astrology. So as our programs go on throughout 4 full years of curriculum, that's sort of the project. You can take our courses at any level of interest or intention, whether you want to become professional or not. Everything you need to know about the program is on this page. There's an informational video tagged on to the end of today's content. You can find that on the page as well. The main thing I want to make you aware of is that if you'd like to take a course like this, but you need a little bit of help there, we do have need-based tuition. So at the bottom of the page, you'll find the need-based tuition application. That allows you to work within a sliding scale and sort of name your monthly price. For many people, that's going to be the only way to make a class like this feasible, but we want to make sure that people are not priced out of studying something sacred. That's really important to us. So yeah, I'll tell you more about the program at the end of today's content. Just remember that the class is held via live webinars, but everything is recorded. So you get to keep everything for life. You can go at your own pace. You can attend every class live if you want to. There's a lot of flexibility built into it. Can't wait to see you guys there for a new program. On that note, let's shift our attention to the real-time clock and let's take a look at Mars opposite Uranus. So here we go. Mars has just entered the sign of Sagittarius, immediately making an opposition to Uranus and Gemini. You can see that this is taking place Tuesday, November 4th. And if I back the screen up just a little bit, we get that exact opposition in my time between almost like 11 and noon Central Time this morning. If we back this one day, you're going to notice that on Monday, yesterday, while we looked at the meeting of the benefics, Venus and Jupiter, which are still separating. So if you missed that episode, go back and maybe learn a little bit about the contact that Venus and Jupiter are still just separating from. But anyway, you'll notice that as the day goes on, I'm going to advance this by some hours, that we get Mars moving closer to Sagittarius, finally ingressing into Sagittarius by about 7, 8 in the morning Central Time, Tuesday, November 4th. That's today. So then the opposition comes through pretty quickly. So we're seeing that that opposition forms within the first minutes of the first degree of Sagittarius to Uranus, who is in the very final moments of its time in Gemini before retrograding into Taurus. If you want some more information about that shift from Uranus, I did some coverage of that last week on the channel. Anyway, so this opposition that forms today, let's give it 3 degrees of separation. So you may have been experiencing this for the past couple of days going back into the weekend. But going forward this week, if we give it, a good healthy 3 degrees of separation, it takes us through about Friday, November 7th, where the 2 planets are now moving into a range of 3 degrees apart. That typically is when things die down. So you could track it from last weekend through this coming weekend, Halloween through about November 7th, if you give it a full week. Certainly today, November 4th, is the hot spot moment for these 2 planets. Now, in their combination, this is one of the most ominous combinations of planets that astrologers talk about in terms of the way that audiences tend to react. They've been doing this a long time. Pluto's right up there, but Mars and Uranus, close second. Whenever Mars and Uranus get together, people tend to get really worried for some good reasons. Uranus is a god of erratic, unexpected, and unpredictable energies, and Mars is the god of war and violence and sort of hot-headedness. And so when the two planets get together, it's like it can be like a cosmic fender bender, and people often feel a little bit more on edge when these two planets are getting together in a forecast. So for that reason, like, is it a bad transit? I don't think so, no. But is it a transit that can feature more erratic, wild, and somewhat violent or unpredictable energies and qualities? Yes, it can. We'll talk about that today. I'm going to give you a list of 5 things to watch for. But let's just say a little bit more about Mars and Uranus together that's more constructive than just crazy, violent shit will happen. Because that's not fun. Mars is a god of action and a god that is closely associated with the process of individuation. Individuation in Jungian terms is not just a path of becoming more individual. It's about slowly realizing what your essential makeup and nature is, which often is hidden from our perspective and is slowly revealed to us as time, age, and experience unfolds. The process of individuation, in other words, is a process of getting to know who you really are. And that happens by means of trying on different costumes, trying on different people and jobs and relationships, trying on different likes and dislikes, different styles, different appearances. And as we do so, we pretty much universally, we humans report on feeling like we're getting closer to our essence. There are some things we've known about ourselves since the time we were little, some things we can only discover through trial and error. And the amalgamation of those things that we know and those things that we come to know, we could just loosely call individuation. And Mars is a god that is thought to preside over many of the features of that process. So that's a very constructive way, in my mind, of thinking about Mars that is a little bit brighter than just like violence and fighting. Still, there is a way in which Mars, in order to define something, has to cut it apart from other things. Both Mars and Saturn, as malefics, are gods that separate in different ways. For example, Saturn likes to put things on either side of a wall or a limit. Mars likes to take things and make them separate by cutting them apart, by taking one thing and literally cutting it in half. When you think about the moment of birth and the process of individuation that begins at the time we're born, it starts with the cutting of an umbilical cord. When we come into the world, we have to be cut apart from our mother. But that act of cutting and almost like the violence and the act of severing that comes with a process of individuation becomes a lot more erratic and revolutionary, original, creative, defiant, rebellious, sudden, unpredictable when Mars gets together with Uranus. It is as though there are certain inflection points on our journey of individuation that require courageous acts of cutting or severing ourselves apart from others. Ideologically, philosophically, I'm going in this direction, not that direction. I can be with you, but not you. I can be part of this group or community, but not this one. Those acts, while they require courage and assertiveness, and sometimes they will involve conflict, they don't necessarily have to be, they don't have to be filled with hate. They don't have to be filled with the intention or desire to harm. They don't have to be life or death survival scenarios. Sometimes they can be, but they don't have to be that way. And I think it's important to say that so that we don't create unnecessary fear and anxiety around a transit like this. So anyway, all of those things being said, there are also many very beneficial things that happen when Mars and Uranus get together. We're going to visit some of those as well. I'm going to give you a list of 5 things to watch for, and then I'm going to give you a list of 3 questions to ask yourself as we then reflect on the house positions of Mars and Uranus in your whole sign horoscopes. So here we go. 5 things to watch for given the combination of Mars and Uranus in an opposition. 1, erratic actions. Be very careful of reactionary. This is like an angry driver who can, fly off the handle and do something they regret. because they let anger and reactivity take over the steering wheel. So be very cautious of erratic actions, things that you do. This is that moment where you talk shit about someone and turn around and accidentally smack your head on the refrigerator. It's like instant karma. Be careful of doing things without thinking, with acting aggressively without care or thoughtfulness or sensitivity. It's a great time, and I'll talk about this more in a second, for bold, determined actions that break from the status quo. But that is very different from doing something reactionary and violent and aggressive that harms yourself or others. So be aware of the potential for, stray bullets, psychically speaking, or, stubbing your toe cosmically because of rushing through something. That is something to note about this transit. You may notice it today in yourself or people around you. It's like a good day to wear a bike helmet to life. Number two, aggressive breakthroughs. Now, if erratic action is the beware, then aggressive breakthroughs, determined, courageous, charismatic actions that are taken coming from a desire to change the status quo or to shift a pattern or to move past a plateau in your development or to do something that you're scared to do, but you need to do it. This is a great astrological transit for taking that step, for being brave, for being determined, maybe for speaking out, maybe for resisting something. We'll get to that more, that piece a little bit more in a minute. But if courage and bravery can create a breakthrough, if determined, decisive actions can get you through some period of stagnation, then go for it. I like to compare it to a common place that I get to in my workouts at the gym, where it's time to go up in weight. When it's time to go up in weight, my coach has taught me that a lot of people training they're ready to go to the next step, but rather than going really incrementally, they'll put too much weight on. They'll go up 10 pounds when maybe they should try for 2.5 or 5 to begin with. And what happens is the desire for an aggressive breakthrough, if it goes too quickly, if it's mindless and too aggressive, becomes an erratic action. Whereas saying, I want to break through, I'm going to go up 2.5 pounds, and then you discover I can actually go up 5. That small difference of incremental, conscious, mindful breakthrough, it makes the world of difference, because if you tried to go up 10 pounds, you tear a muscle, So think about the difference between an erratic action and a thoughtful but aggressive breakthrough right now. Number 3, defiant or rebellious opposition. Sometimes these two planets get together and it's time to stand up to someone or something. It's time to say no more. It's time to say I disagree. It's time to rebel. Can you do so without burning a bridge, without tearing your life down, without putting yourself in harm's way, without saying I quit my job before you have a safety net lined up? Those are considerations, of course. But sometimes it's just a moment to say I resist. I'm not going to put up with someone perhaps in a position of authority that's abusing that authority or power. And so there's a need to resist, oppose, rebel, defy. Sometimes our own inner voices need to be resisted or rebelled against or opposed. I find that with an energy like this, the question is, how do I rebel? How do I defy? How do I oppose without coming to resemble that thing or energy or person that I oppose in the way that I do it? It's like a great question for all moments of rebellion. How do I not become the next oppressive force? Because it's a temptation to do so in the empowering experience of defying and rebelling itself. Number 4, speed and revolution. This is a transit that moves fast, that comes on quick, and that can suddenly create 180s, twists of plot or circumstance that happen quickly. And just like the word revolve, they turn everything. That turn and the speed at which it happens can be a little jarring. So what do you have set up in your life to be able to ground and receive and reflect and take what's happening, the speed and process of revolution that can come on so quickly, and process it, integrate it? I think sometimes life can be a roller coaster and we can get addicted to the highs and lows. And even astrologically, this is a transit that can tap into that addictive part of ourselves that says, ooh, this is dramatic and fun and fast and sudden, and I'm not going to check in and feel my feelings and take some time to get to my body and take care of myself and process and integrate what's happening. Things can happen quickly. They can be brilliant and revolutionary, and we can still take time to care for the living being that is processing those experiences. So just a little piece of advice there, because it can be quite brilliant and flashy, and it's like lightning strikes with the speed of the revolutionary impulses that come through with the transit like this. Number 5, unexpected confrontations. I hate to say it, but in the news, we often see unexpected sudden acts of violence or hostility. This is that sudden bombing campaign, or it's that sudden, act of political terror, and I hate to even utter those things, but Mars opposite Uranus will have this, it's like a sudden, unexpected assault or attack. And that can happen to our character, to our job, to our work, to our technology, where suddenly, if Mars is thought of as just the god of misfortune, doesn't even necessarily have to be an enemy, an antagonizer, or someone who wants to physically harm. It can just be the god of frustrating, shit. So if Mars and Uranus get together, it's like sudden, aggravating, frustrating misfortunes that occur that you just simply have to deal with, an unexpected confrontation with the god of misfortune. I mean, Mars was associated with the 6th house, which was called mala fortuna, or bad fortune. Like stubbing your toe, that kind of simple daily shit that nobody likes, but we all have to deal with. This transit is one that often throws a little, curveball, and you're having to pay an unexpected bill or just confront something that is unexpectedly frustrating or difficult. How do you handle that? Grace under pressure. This is a transit that, in some ways tests us to say things will not always go as smoothly as I am expecting that they go, or that I think they ought to go, or whatever. But how do I respond? How do I stay in my heart? I feel like this is the kind of transit that weirdly rewards us for being graceful under pressure. Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, I have 3 questions that I want you all to consider as we go into some whole sign horoscopes. First, let me get the horoscopes set up. All right, here we are. Oops. All right. Got it all ready to go. So 3 questions to ask yourself right now, and then apply the house topics that we consider in these following horoscopes. The first question is, where is sudden change or adaptation needed? By that, I just mean, hey, this is a transit that creates that sudden momentary breakthrough. Where do you need to change somewhat suddenly or rapidly or even instantly right now? Or where do you need to adapt because of changes that are happening? Meditate on that question. Take a moment with it. Number 2, what feels most confronting or challenging right now? And how can I sit with that and learn something about myself, become a better person, because I'm taking a moment to not just deal with a confronting or challenging situation or person or energy, but I'm sitting with it and saying, why are you here? Thank you for being here. Help me learn, help me grow. Taking that small moment with what feels confronting or challenging, even though you also have to go and deal with it, is going to be important. Even if you do it later, you have to deal with it right now. You don't have time to sit and ponder it, fine, but come back to it. 3, what is the wise and the brave thing to do? Where do you need to take decisive, bold, courageous, strong actions? But how can those actions be rooted in wisdom, in virtue, in goodness, in compassion, in forgiveness, in tolerance, in open-mindedness, in curiosity, in humility? How can you bring those things to bear on strong, decisive actions that you may have to take very quickly right now or very unexpectedly? So sit with those 3 questions. I think that if we sit with things like this, and you've seen me, I've gone and sat down on the couch recently just to demonstrate it. I mean it. I mean it. You're listening to the podcast, sit with those questions for even 2 minutes each. You'll be surprised at how much of a difference it can make. Well, on that note, as promised, I want to take a little bit of time before going into horoscopes to bring you a second promotion of the day, which is a talk that I'm giving on November 13th. Because of the holidays, my monthly webinar is earlier in the month. So on November 13th from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, if you go to the live talks portion of the events page on the Nightlight Astrology website, you will find my next talk, Pairing the Planets, Venus's Many Faces. Let me tell you about this. First of all, if you register, you'll get the link to attend the live webinar. If you can't attend, you get the recording afterwards, so you can watch it on your own time. This is a talk that is meant to get down to the philosophical roots of Venus. One of the things that people often don't know about ancient astrology is that it was a philosophy. It was an entire way of looking at reality. And on that level, each of the planets were considered archai, which means first principles. In the first portion of this series in September, we took a look at Mercury as a philosophical first principle. In other words, as one of the building blocks of reality itself. The planets were thought of as these basic metaphysical building blocks. We're going to talk about Venus as a basic metaphysical building block of reality. From there, we're going to pair that philosophical understanding of Venus with all of the other planets. This is going to teach you how to blend and combine planets at a much deeper level than what you typically get. And a lot of the times you get a delineation of Venus with some other planet like Mercury or Jupiter or the sun or whatever. And you kind of go, okay, yeah, I get that. But understanding where and how all of those delineations are made based on philosophical first principles teaches you something so much better than a list of delineations to memorize, because it teaches you how to build the delineations yourself and see many of them that you otherwise would never see, because you're starting to use your own intuition. So I hope to see you there. On that note, let's get back into horoscopes. All right. So I'm going to put the horoscopes up on the screen. We're going to go Aries through Pisces, and I'm simply going to talk about the presence of these two planets across the sign house axis. So listen to this for your sun or rising. These are meant to be just topical house reminders to be paired with the 5 things to watch for and the 3 questions to ask. Mars opposite Uranus across the 9th and the 3rd house asks, what is real and what is true? What is the higher truth of the moment? What is virtuous? What is good? What is real in the sense of ultimate reality? It's the house of sages and philosophers. But there's also the question of who you are psychologically, mentally, emotionally, and how do you personally carry and express higher truth? There are questions right now about who you are and what is real and true that have to come together. You have to be who you are, but you have to also be an evolving vessel for an understanding of higher truth. How are those things interacting right now within you? And questions or debates about what you're learning or how your paradigm is changing are paramount if you're an Aries. Now for Tauruses, we're looking at the 8th and the 2nd houses, which have to do with assets and resources. Those that are yours, those that belong to you, those that you cultivate and build, and those that come from other people. There could be an antagonizing dynamic right now between yourself and others. There could be abrupt changes to various contracts that you hold with other people that you work with or live with. The need to make sure that there is balance and reciprocity in relationships, that not one person is giving or taking too much, demanding too much, that you're not taking too much. And also what kinds of breakthroughs can happen in your relationships with respect to the way that resources are given and exchanged emotionally, psychologically, sexually, financially. Looking closely at those things is important right now for you Tauruses. Now for Geminis, we're talking about the 7th and the 1st houses. That's the house of relationships, love, intimacy, marriage, and individuality. So the question here is about how do you honor and acknowledge all that you are and all that you're becoming, while also accommodating who other people are, what they need, what they're becoming, what their will and way looks like in relation to your own. Power struggles would not be uncommon here, but also the ability to galvanize or catalyze each other's growth and share in exciting, dynamic, creative energies cooperatively. For Cancers, we're talking about the 6th and the 12th house. And here we're talking about things that are coming up in the unconscious psyche that have expressions in the material world as well. Oftentimes when we're ready to take a big growth step, things in the unconscious appear as obstacles in the material world. And by facing them and working through them, we're provided an opportunity for a breakthrough on the level of unconscious material, which now we have a better understanding of. We can be healthier, happier, more whole or complete. But for Cancers right now, I would look at what kinds of difficulties are you confronting or working through that are serving you a great opportunity for healing, growth, and personal breakthroughs. For Leos, we're looking at the 5th, and oops, look at that. We're so close to Uranus changing signs. So anyway, Mars opposite Uranus in the 5th and the 11th house, if you're a Leo, we're talking about the direction of your own creative spark and essence. Mars in the 5th is about exciting the creative essence and expressing it willfully, strongly, bravely, courageously. However, as you do so, you may be met with different forms of opposition or resistance from collectives, communities, social dimensions of life, your professional networks. You may also be met with unexpected opportunities for collaboration. Hey, your creative energy could be used here or could be used in collaboration with this person or this group of people. So opportunities for creative collaboration, but also meaningful confrontations or conflicts between your own creative will and way and the direction of various social groups or social facets of your life. So consider that oppositional tension right now if you're a Leo. Let's move on and we'll go to Virgo. So for Virgos, Mars and Uranus oppose across the 4th and the 10th house. This is the place of home and family, of roots, ancestry, your living environment, and the public sphere of work, vocation, public notoriety or reputation, the influence or sway that you have in the world. Mars opposite Uranus across these two houses could speak to a moment where you need to break from your family of origin or traditions or values or beliefs that maybe come from your family, but it's time to depart from and express your own beliefs uniquely. That moment could create some ripples or even some conflicts at home or family, or maybe there's some way in which you're being asked to bravely carry aspects of your family, your history, your past. I'm thinking of my daughter, for example. Like, it's hard for her in certain spaces to go to school and be like, my mom's a witchy herbalist, my dad's an astrologer, because some people think all of that stuff is crap. And so even as a 10-year-old, it's like she's Virgo rising. She's got like a Mars Uranus. I could see, not that that's necessarily playing out for her right now, but that would be a story that even for a 10-year-old could be happening, where you have something unique that comes from your roots, but expressing it in the world involves a certain amount of resistance, or what's like provocative to be the kid of an astrologer. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's just a little example that hopefully highlights some of the tensions that might be there for you Virgos right now, which have to do with where you come from and the roots of your life at home, domestically, privately versus the public sphere. And there's a kind of creative, defiant, oppositional tension that's taking place between those two realms right now. That's the point. Okay, let's go forward to Libras. For Libras, we're back to the 3rd and the 9th house axis as we were for Aries. And now the final 6 signs, everything's just going to flip. So the same tension is really there. Mars opposite Uranus across these two houses has to do with breakthroughs in your understanding of truth and higher reality, but paired with how you express those truths or how you carry them through the unique vehicle of your own mind, of your own skills, of your own intellect, of your own emotional, psychological makeup. And so this is a moment right now to ask yourself, who am I and what do I believe? How do I carry what do I believe? How do I embody what I believe? How do I speak on behalf of it? How do I carry it strongly and confidently, but maybe not too strongly? What kinds of meaningful ideological or philosophical tensions are coming up for you right now as a Libra? That would be one good way of framing it. All right, well, for Scorpios, it's across the 2nd and the 8th, opposite Tauruses, basically the same setup. Questions about what is mine, what do I own, what do I possess, what gives me a sense of strength, power, self-sufficiency, and how is what I have, own, or possess, or what I'm cultivating being challenged by disruptions in relationships. For example, if you have a lot of money, but suddenly you owe people that money, or suddenly people that you're obligated to in some way need help, that can be a disturbing, unexpected way that energies across the 2nd and the 8th can meet. Questions about the give and take or exchange within relationships, the value financially, emotionally, psychologically, energetically. What am I taking versus what am I giving? What do I provide what versus what is being provided? This is an inflection moment in the evaluation of those soul contracts and the give and take that is that exists therein. So consider all of those things if you're a Scorpio. Now for Sagittarians, opposite Geminis, right? The 1st and 7th is activated again. So selfhood, the need to be strong, confident, bold, maybe a little provocative, to be direct and assertive in expressing who you are, to be a leader, to be courageous. But you're also being met with a kind of revolutionary, somewhat maybe resistant dynamic in the 7th house of love and relationships or of intimacy. To be strong, can you still be open-minded? To be strong and bold and courageous, are you still listening? Can you do that while still listening to other people, while considering other perspectives, while staying curious? So questions about mind, intellect, convictions, strength of our thoughts and beliefs, as well as an openness or willingness to receive the feedback or unique position of another person. That comes to my mind here for Sagittarians. For Capricorns, we're looking at that 12th and 6th house axis again, opposite our Cancers who had it in the same houses. Mars in the 12th will often come up as though someone or something is trying to undermine us. It's the feeling of, on that day when you deal with someone trying to steal your identity online and you just feel like, what is the universe out to get me? The Mars in the 12th transits often correlate to the feeling that someone or some antagonizing force that we can't see and we don't understand why it's there is messing with us. I know that sounds kind of dark, but here's what's cool about it. As the Mars-Uranus opposition exists, there's going to be opportunities to almost like stand up to some psychic form of bullying. And that could be coming from within ourselves too, like voices on our own inner committee that are just too rough or that are a little abusive or overly critical. We may have to confront. The feeling that reality's out to get me, we may have to confront. This is a great transit to retain a strong sense of strength, flexibility, adaptability. I'm going to be okay. It might be the case that the gods are trying to smack me around right now, but I'm going to humbly accept whatever's happening, learn, work through it, and then suddenly it starts to correspond with a growing sense of strength, confidence, trust. This is a transit that can create a very powerful existential breakthrough, developing faith, confidence, trust, inner spiritual strength because of how we handle the unexpected things that come up and feel like they're antagonizing us. Develop a broader, bigger perspective, handle it with grace and integrity, and watch as the sense of strength builds. And then when Mars moves into your 1st house where it's exalted, you're going to reap the rewards of that process. All right, anyway, let's go forward to Aquarius, where Mars and Uranus oppose across the 11th and 5th houses. Mars in the 11th opposite Uranus in the 5th. Again, the forces around creativity, being essentially being true to our essential creative nature. Uranus in the 5th has been pressing that button for you Aquarians all the way back to early July. With Mars entering the 11th, social expectations, the strength or conviction of your beliefs socially, politically, and how they connect you to various cultures or groups of people that you consider to be allies or that whose convictions mirror your own somehow, are coming into this intense kind of dynamic with Uranus in the 5th house of creativity. Is your creative direction finding itself somewhat at odds with various political or social directions in your life? Is there an opportunity for collaborating socially, politically, professionally, and creatively? Or are things reaching a point of irreconcilable differences? That would be, I think, it would not be surprising to see those kinds of tensions playing out. All right, so that's for Aquarians. Finally, for Pisceans, Mars in the 10th, Uranus in the 4th, revolution at the roots a change or shakeup to norms, patterns around home, family, living environment, the interior sphere of your life, awakening, being stirred to life. Opposite Mars in the house of professional life, public, social reputation. It feels to me like whatever's changing deep within or from the more private domestic sphere of life is connected to the galvanizing forces of Mars in your career house. It's like what action, what conflicts, what confrontations, what boldness or courage is coming into the professional house, and how is it communicating with Uranus, this god of revolution, in the place of home, family, roots, or the more private interior sphere? To me, it wouldn't be surprising to say I have to do something different. I have to speak up and look different, or exercise my authority or my voice or my willpower in a different way in order to match a shift of internal circumstances that's happening in my life or in the private family sector of my life. So that rounds things out. And on that note, I'm going to sign off for the day. There's lots more to come this week. I think as I'm looking at this transit, if we give it 3 degrees of separation, right, we're not going to see this transit fully separating until about Saturday, November 8th. I think Friday's probably a little safer because that's the day that Uranus moves into Taurus, and then the whole sign opposition, which really forms the aspect, has departed. So anything we talked about today, keep an eye on it for the rest of the week. That's the point. So that's it for now. After I sign off, there's an informational video about the Year 1 program. Our next group starts on November 15th. Take a moment to check it out. You're going to absolutely love this program. One of the main reasons, every day I've been telling you, one reason that I think it's worth studying at Nightlight, and I have kind of had like a different thing every day. Our staff is amazing. You have a course director, 2 lead course tutors, and an additional tutor in our discussion forum. So we have 4 staff for the Year 1 program. And you'll get to know everyone at Nightlight because there's staff in all the other programs. If you spend enough time with us, you get to know everyone. But our staff is amazing. They're committed spiritual practitioners, people who've been through all of our programs, who are there to help you not get lost, have a meaningful spiritual learning experience. And they're present, they're solid, they're good-hearted people. That's one of my favorite parts about our program. So come check it out. I hope to see you guys there. Informational video about Year 1 is next. Starts on November 15th. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to tell you about our upcoming program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. This is our first-year course in Hellenistic astrology, and it begins again this November. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the course, the format of the course, and how to register. So let's go ahead and get into it. What is this course about? Well, if you are not familiar, ancient Hellenistic astrology is the earliest and original form of horoscopic astrology. All of the subsequent forms and schools of astrology that have existed over thousands of years come from these philosophical and theoretical roots. And so what you're doing when you study Hellenistic astrology is you're going back to understand the why behind absolutely everything. Why were there ever such a thing as houses and signs in the first place? How were the planets ever assigned to rule various portions of the zodiac in the first place? How do you use the categories of essential dignity, and why were they ever created in the first place? If you're someone like me, you like to know the why behind things, because once you understand the why, then you know how to use things more intuitively. So really the point of Hellenistic astrology, in my opinion, is not so much about going back and becoming a traditional astrologer or, just being traditional for the sake of being traditional, as much as it is about grasping the roots of the entire system and paradigm. When you understand those roots, you have more intuition and understanding, which allow for you to be much more artful and fluid in the way that you speak the language of astrology. We call this class Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic because while it is about going back to understand the philosophical, theoretical, technical roots of the tradition, it's also about fluidly bridging those things with modern astrology and all of its most unique contributions. For example, modern astrology has given us so much psychological depth and personal depth. And so in a modern astrological setting, you're going to get the ability to explore your own character, your own psychology, and you're going to be able to utilize astrology for a process of healing and personal transformation. But when you pair that with ancient astrology, and it's almost like predictive karmic analytics, you really have a full toolkit to work with. And so that's also a great mission of ours at Nightlight, is to bridge ancient and modern forms, which is why we call the program Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. So that's just a little kind of overview of the program. If you want to know more about the specifics of the curriculum and of the syllabus, what I encourage you to do is go over to nightlightastrology.com, click on the courses page, go to the first year course, scroll down, and you'll see this over 12 months you'll learn about. And here you're going to see more of a detailed breakdown of the curriculum itself. I can promise you that if you've studied astrology in modern context, but you've never gone back to the ancient roots, while some of these topics may look familiar to you and you go, oh, I've already learned about that, unless you've studied them from the Hellenistic perspective, I guarantee that you are not going to be familiar with this content. Hellenistic astrology is mind-blowingly new and interesting for most people. And if you've never studied it, again, don't assume that anything on this list is something you're going to be familiar with. In that way, the program is really ideal for a variety of different people, and I'll say more about that in a second. So what is the format of the course? Let's go to that next. Scroll down and you're going to see that the course includes 30 online webinars that I lead throughout the year. Over the course of a year together, I have 30 classes that are broken into different units of material. In between those classes, we have breakout study sessions with your course director and 2 TAs. They're going to lead you through Q&A sessions and tutoring sessions to make sure that you have a lot of support in between major units of study. In addition, we also have an interactive group forum discussion where you can ask questions year-round and get an answer within a business day in the student forum, where a lot of people also connect and build community. Lots of people in that forum also develop like little meetup groups outside of class. That's very common in all of our programs. It's a very community-loving, warm space where anyone's also welcome. Throughout the course, you're also going to find that for every lesson, if you're just there as a hobby student, you can just listen to the webinars. They're all recorded for you. So if you can't make the live webinars, everything is housed on the website as recordings. I'd say about 40 or 50% of our students are going to be following along at their own pace, whereas the other half might be attending the live webinars. But it's really kind of, you know, if you can attend a few and then 1 week you got to be gone, the recordings are always there. You have lifetime access to everything in the course, so it's not a big deal. For every lesson as well, if you're someone who wants to go really, really deep, maybe you have the intention to practice professionally, this course is set up with an optional certification exam at the end from our school, from our program. So you can, you know, if you want to build that resume and develop the credentials from our programs, you can do that, but it's optional, so you don't have to. And outside of every lesson, we have recommended reading. We have supplemental bonus content, all of which is optional, but it's there for people who might want a lot more, whereas some people will take the webinars themselves, and that'll be plenty. So it's really flexible in that way. Also, this is one program within 4 years of curriculum that are meant to go together. And so most people who come through our first year program will end up taking our second year program, where we develop forecasting and prediction and transit tracking techniques. Our third year program, which is aimed at counseling and psychology, so psychological counseling skills, is our third year program. And then the Oracle Within, which is our exploration of the philosophical, spiritual roots of the divinatory oracular tradition of astrology. So there's a lot of material there. We also have another 1 year program in horary astrology for some people who want to add that predictive tool to their toolkit. So there's just a lot of material at Nightlight that this class is actually just one part of, which can be taken standalone, or for some people, they get into it, they're going to love it. You're going to hang out with us for 3 or 4 years worth of content. This program is ideal for a number of different types of students of astrology. I'll say that for starters. So let's see here. I'll stop sharing this. So we have there's a profile of the typical students who come through our courses. One is going to be people who just want a very guided introduction to ancient astrology because you've never had it before. Maybe you're only familiar with modern, and you want that guided, structured approach to learning traditional for the first time. Also, people who are brand new to astrology in general. There's no better place to start than at the roots of the ancient foundations. So whether you're a total beginner or just a beginner to Hellenistic, this is a great place to start. If you are someone who's been around astrology for a long time, but you've never had a guided, structured approach to Hellenistic astrology, again, this is a great place to start. I promise you, Hellenistic is very different than what you're familiar with, and you're going to need a guided and structured approach at some point in time. I also think for people who are looking for a lineage, which means not just a bunch of information, but a practitioner-specific based approach where you get to see a practitioner work with clients. You get to hear how a practitioner has prioritized different techniques and why. You're going to get a structured, spiritually grounded focus at Nightlight as well, where if you're looking for someone who practices astrology, but also values grounded everyday spiritual practice, that's Nightlight. If you want a community that's been in the industry for a long time now, this is our 16th year of teaching programs and guiding students through trainings. So all of those things, if they matter to you, this is a great place to study. It's a warm community atmosphere. It's spiritually grounded. It's focused. It's academically rigorous. It's going to provide you the appropriate preparation for practicing professionally, especially if you go through all of our programs. But also for those who are just curious and love astrology for your own personal interests, this is going to be a great place for you to learn and grow and thrive and feel like you have a lot of support around you in the curriculum, the teachers, the community, as you're developing, what might just be a personal interest or spiritual hobby. So that is who it's ideal for. Finally, how you register. You go over to the website. I'm going to take you back there. And it's at the bottom of the first year page. You're going to find that the early bird rate is in effect until October 24th. You can save significantly off the cost of the course when you use the early bird rate, where you can pay in full, or use an early bird installment rate plan. Both are going to save you off significantly off the cost of the course. But also at Nightlight, it has always been our mission to make sure that astrological education is accessible for everyone. So please, if you are someone who would love to take this course, but maybe you can only afford a small amount of tuition per month, use the tuition assistance. It is there. All you got to do is apply. You fill out the little form. You tell us your situation. If you're on a fixed income, if you're on a limited income, if you're part-time, if you're in between jobs, if you don't make a lot and you're on that fixed budget, we understand. We don't want people to hurt themselves trying to study something that is spiritual that we feel should be very accessible for everybody. So if you're someone who could use a little help to make this program happen, for whatever reason, maybe you're a single parent or you're on disability or you're retired or you're on a fixed income, whatever the case is, use that tuition assistance. Also, people in other countries who have extreme, exchange rates. We get it. So just use the tuition assistance and we'll be glad to make sure that the price point is accessible. For us, as a spiritual topic, we're a business at the end of the day, but we believe that this is a spiritual topic. And so accessibility has been a part of our model for 16 years now. We've never not had one of our training programs with affordable sliding scale-based prices for people who need it. So please take advantage of that. It's all there for you. I hope to see you in classes soon. And if you have any questions about the program whatsoever, direct them to us at info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope to see you all coming up here in November. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.